Hello, I'm John Hine, Director of Compass Resolution. Today, I have the pleasure and the privilege of talking to Andrew Nicoll, an experienced employment consultant specialising in, among other things, assessing and assisting with current and future employment prospects and earning capacity for separating couples using the mediation process. Well, that's what I'll be talking to Andrew about today. Andrew has over 30 years of experience in this work, having provided expert support in more than 4,000 cases, so he's a man to listen to. Welcome, Andrew. Hello there.
Welcome, John.
Good to have you with me today. So Andrew and good to have you with me. Good to see you. Look, Andrew and I. Anyway, look, Andrew. Andrew and I will spend 30 minutes talking about the service and the support Andrew provides to separating couples, and specifically separating couples trying to carve out and create their own fair financial solutions using the mediation process. And so our hope, guys out there, if you're watching this, is by the end of this conversation between Andrew and me, you'll have a clear understanding of three main areas: what Andrew, the employment consultant, actually does, why it can be such an important service in so many cases and key to the success or not of the mediation process, and in you, the separating couple, reaching your financial solution yourselves. And number three, how does all this fit in with the mediation process? Couples working together with a mediator, which I'll discuss with Andrew, i.e. when to instruct him, how to instruct him, how he might be involved in mediation, and so on. So Andrew, enough of me rabbiting on in my introduction. Let's start with that kind of first question. What, as an employment consultant, what do you do? Just, yeah.
My role in the mediation process would be to provide clear evidence, both in terms of career activity and earnings figures in relation to resolving disputes between the parties. A particular problem that certainly I'm aware of in family cases is a situation where the parties are at loggerheads with regard to current or future earning capacity of one party. And the most common trigger for that situation is where one party, normally the mother, has been out of the labour market and caring for children for a number of years. What I do is look at her, or in some cases, in fact, where the father has been looking after the children, their experience, their qualifications, their age, their location, and also discuss with them how they want to spend the next 20 or 30 years of their life, which is quite important, to discuss with them and fix realistic goals. Because I'm not interested, and I don't think it's helpful in providing reports for people who want to be astronauts or other exotic and unattainable occupational activities. But from there, to develop a realistic framework of how, once the separation is in place, they will achieve that goal. I will look at initially if they require retraining or upskilling in their particular background, how they will go about that, how long it will take, how much it will cost, where they can access that retraining. We will then look at how long, having retrained, they will take to get a real job, what they will earn on entry to that real job, and how that their earning capacity will develop, as is normally the case in probably 85% of occupations, whereby over a number of years, as they build their experience and knowledge, they work towards achieving the average income in that activity. I also look at other opportunities or other benefits they may accrue and will accrue if they are in full-time and permanent employment, such as pensions. I will also look at the circumstances whereby perhaps where younger children are involved in the relationship and they are still the primary carer, how a return or re-equipping themselves for employment can work in parallel with ongoing childcare responsibilities. The overarching purpose really is to try and provide both parties with a considered and realistic assessment of current and future earning capacity. It is most unlikely to be a precise scientific number, because life is not as neat and convenient as that. But what I do aim to do is to give a range within, dependent upon certain discussions, admissions and conclusions that the parties themselves must come to, whereby they can fix on a figure of one party, if that is the dispute, if that is what is at loggerheads, that they are both dissatisfied with, that they both think probably isn't quite right, but it allows them to
But good enough.
walk away from the situation and accept that this is likely to happen. What I do not do is provide an extreme range of possibilities, because I don't think that helps. That's why I've been brought in, because the parties themselves are perhaps not able to find that common occupational stroke earnings ground whereby a single unsatisfactory figure can be hacked out between them.
That's really interesting, because that goes right to the kind of root of what we're trying to do in mediation, of course. And what I want to ask you, which is again will be interesting to not only the mediators who work with separating couples, trying to help the two people perhaps with very different views about the earning capacity for one of them, and maybe with different feelings about it, anxieties about the future and so on, help them to work together. Do you have any examples, any kind of, let's try and put this into a bit of context, I guess. So you've got you, Andrew, you're helping this couple, and there's a lot to think about. You know, I was listening to all the things you work, I have to think about with the person, or with the on the question of earning capacity. And so you're there working with the person who you're looking at particularly with in terms of their earning capacity, but also both that person and maybe the person who's going to be paying some financial support. So can we think about some examples where you think that your service could overcome some of the challenges, some challenging situations where you think that how you work can really support that couple to overcome those kind of challenges?
Certainly, I mean, I'd give two, I think, example. One very much along the lines that I was outlining as the normal case, whereby a couple with children, with young children of primary school age, coming up to primary school age, father very successful professional business, mother had reasonable career till marriage, till children, now had 8-9 years out of the labour market, been at home. Father says, well, go back to work then. Go back immediately to what you were doing. You were earning good money. What do you want me to do about it? The mother takes the view that, having had 9 years out of her particular area in financial services as it was, this is just not feasible. Plus, there are, from her experience of working in that particular sector, she knows that the hours are long and the work unforgiving. What I was able to do was to discuss and gain the agreement of both parties of a gradual return to work, place the mother into the hands of and the support network of a returners organisation who works in the financial services sector, allowed her to re-engage in work on a flexible basis and part-time at the outset, and thereby she was able to earn but still fulfill the primary care role, which was always going to be hers in any event. And thereafter, it was envisaged and agreed by her and by the father, the other party, that at this point the children were entering secondary education. She would then be returning to full-time work and her career, while never regaining the momentum it would have had she not had the 8 or 9 years out. Nevertheless, she would be back earning a reasonable income. And an important factor in that particular case was that the mother herself was very keen that she wanted to go back to work. She wanted to regain her dignity. And she did not, in fact, want to be beholden to the man who would soon be her former husband.
That is a very common motivation, actually. I often hear, if it's the mum, it could be the dad, but generally speaking, you know, this wish, and it goes to a core value, the value of autonomy, independence, freedom, control, and so on. I don't want to be, so I hear the language in mediation. I don't want to be dependent on you. I would like to be financially independent, but there are limitations, which we're talking about here. I need the flexibility to be able to work as well, to develop my own independence, as well as to maintain my role as mother, as carer, and so on. And so, you know, absolutely. And so what would you put it down to? Some kind of keys to the success there. What was the key to helping this couple arrive at an outcome that they were both sufficiently comfortable with, or not uncomfortable with? It felt good enough for them both. What do you think some kind of keys were to them finding?
The key issue was to get them to get both sides to accept that work was feasible and would be feasible in the near future. In other words, at the resolution of their dispute, and things could begin to move forward after that day, rather than 5 years hence, or never, or immediately now. What I was able to offer was a process, was a ramp whereby both parties could get what they want. But they couldn't have it now.
Yeah, so helping them to construct a kind of to see for themselves. There is some clarity, a pathway. There is helping them to create to make it real for them, feasible, real,
and to give them the tools to get where they want to go.
Support them with the tools, and encouragement, support, building the confidence, overcoming anxieties about, and that I guess comes from actually a number of things, isn't it? Understanding that the person can actually do what you're helping them to think about and realize that they can do, that realization. That's fascinating. So by bringing your expertise into the mediation process to help both of them, actually, but the specific one who's working there, adjusting, to take a legal term, adjusting to financial independence without undue hardship, you know, that old good old legal term. To do that in reality, I can absolutely see that it's crucial. I mean, it's crucial in so many of my financial mediations. That is actually often is an area of resistance or discomfort. This notion of capacity to earn and everything that goes into that.
One of the reasons it is so difficult and so contentious is people do not understand. People do not know about careers and earnings, because you know about your own career and earnings, but most people have kind of gone into it, left university, or gone into it after completing education, and you've stayed more or less on that track. You don't know what the average earnings of a physiotherapist are. You don't know what is involved in a very common intention that is stated by parties, is to set themselves up as a counsellor. Well, there are some successful counsellors and there are some unsuccessful counsellors. And if that's what they want to do, that's fine. But I'm here to explain what is involved in it and what the likely outcomes are.
Statistics,
Not
data.
what you want to happen,
Yeah.
but what is
Realistic in the market. You're helping them to understand, build their understanding and awareness of what might be possible given your expertise and knowledge of the marketplace, so that they can reflect on, consider their options, because we'll come to options in a minute, because I mean, you know, it may be that the payer of financial support is very wealthy and happy to support the mum, for example, but we're assuming, of course, that that driving motivation to become independent is driving this, and actually there is this need and wish to be independent, and actually there is a legal principle there at play, which we won't dwell on too much, but other kind of situations that you can think of where your services were a crucial leverage to success, helping people to reach a kind of a good.
Well, I would say that this one goes to the other extreme of a separating couple in their mid-50s. The husband had a quite successful city career, and the wife had stayed at home for 30 years. And the husband was facing the significant difficulties of trying to get back into a job at his age. And the wife was facing the difficulty of trying to get into any job, not having worked for 30 years. Matters weren't particularly helped because the husband was on holiday in Canada and the wife was on holiday in New Zealand. So interviewing them via Zoom in the good old days, or as we are here in fact, was one of the more challenging aspects. But having said it was the extremes, I mean, we all started off from the common sense point that there was a significant question as to whether either of them would return to work. I certainly took the view that they both had an earning potential. Certainly the husband was not going to go back to the kind of level he had enjoyed previously. He was just not going to go back to it. But he would go back to work and go back to a lower level. The wife could return to work, and again, as we talked about earlier, had wanted something to do. There was no particular reason for her to be at home for the next 20 years. And we found out and discussed with her what she wanted to do. She wanted to work and had some experience of working in the voluntary sector. And she was an intelligent, articulate woman. There was no reason she could not transfer that voluntary experience and a certain amount of improvement of her technical skills into paid work in that sector. So that's where we went. And while we, in comparative terms, we were talking about relatively low sums of money, nevertheless, they both walked away with, you know, a recognition of each other's earning capacity, and also a recognition that neither of them actually had the earning capacity that they'd both accused each other of possessing.
And isn't that a really important conclusion, that each person needs to believe and feel that they're doing their best in the given situation? And sometimes, and before you might come in, they are basing all their views and their beliefs. You're not earning what you should be, on assumption and on just a hypothetical. You know, you're not working hard enough, and therefore your expertise, you can help them understand and put some reality to their views, and then often, actually, I find it with that, people shift. They say, okay, I understand, that key understanding. I understand what might be possible for you, and you understand what might be possible for me in terms of it. and therefore we are now on the same page and we can make decisions together. Which is what
well, that's it. And I, you know, in my report it says, look, these are the obstacles that party A needs to overcome to convert a theoretical employment capacity into a real job and sustain it. And these are the obstacles that party B needs to overcome.
That's
now,
interesting, because
you better get these through your heads, because they aren't going to go away tomorrow.
So let's talk about your report, actually. So it's okay. So I've got a couple, and you know, they might fall into one of those context or category scenarios we've been talking about. And I've spoken to them in mediation, and they've absolutely bought into using using you to support them. Let's begin with the outcome, which is a report. I'll come back to how you might want to be instructed, how you might be brought into the mediation process. We'll talk about a bit more, but the report itself, you just given us a little bit of insight into the report. You said, look, one of the one part of your report will highlight the challenges that would need to be overcome to achieve the kind of outcome that you'll. But can you give some idea of what will go into a report, into one of your reports? Typical kind of.
Each report, I don't do joint reports in the sense that I don't have two people in one report, so everyone gets a single report. The reason for that is one view on one party might be accepted, and the other party is still in dispute.
Makes sense.
So that, you know, effectively that would need taking off the table. Section 1, I explain what I've been asked to do. Section 2, employment history, qualifications, etc. Section 3, where are you now? In other words, what is your potential? What are you interested in? What are the factors that will affect your progression from inactivity or part-time menial activity into something more substantial? Then we look at the job market. What opportunities, if you want to be a chimney sweep today, would there be in your locality? If there are wages, pay figures relevant to your particular set of circumstances, we take those out of the market. More likely, we look at formally available Office for National Statistics data, survey data for different occupations, to look at what people as a new entrant will earn, and then build up over, dependent upon the different occupation, 5 years or 10 years, back towards average income, median income, whichever is relevant in that. So you've got instructions, history, narrative, figures, and the last bit is the figures, because that's what people are interested in.
Yeah, and I guess you have to be quite careful with those as well, because if one's too rigid and binary, it can polarize minds and things.
Range, as I said, there is always a range of figures, because and why there's a range of figures is not that I can't make my mind up.
No.
That plays a part, but it also must depend on how the parties regard each other, what factual admissions or rejections they make about each other's capabilities and personalities, and so there's always a range.
Absolutely.
You know, I try to narrow the range, but
would it be useful, actually? That's really interesting. I'm just thinking that on the hoof here. So you've done all that work with them. You provide the range, and so how useful would it be for you then? I'm now get the couple back, and I'm in mediation, and I'm talking to them more holistically about trying to reach a fair financial outcome in relation to everything. How useful when it comes to, do you think, from your perspective, would it be to come into the mediation session where they are trying to grapple with perhaps the topic of how much ongoing financial support is person A going to pay to person B, which will, of course, factor in the earning capacity, the outgoings. How useful do you think, I mean, for you, from your point of view, how useful do you think you could be to the couple in that process?
Where I would be useful is if they wish to understand better, wish to have further information, wish me to clarify the content of my report and why I have reached a conclusion or a figure that I have reached. In straightforward civil litigation, when you know, I am asked part 35 questions by the respective parties, and I can go on and ask me 85 questions about.
I know. I remember it well as a lawyer. I remember. I know.
But I mean, unfortunately, most don't. But that mechanism is there in straightforward litigation, and therefore it should be available.
It is
to everyone's benefit if it is available in
mediation,
and it can be done either through written questions, if that's easier, or it can be done in a face-to-face meeting with both sides able to explore and understand the responses.
I'm a great. Anyone's worked with me and any couples who work with me would know that I'm a great proponent of the latter. Everyone hearing the same information and getting the opportunity in the moment to ask the questions, to clarify for themselves, overcoming any concerns they might have, listening to each other, and so on. Because of course, what you and I are trying to do for the couple is support them to construct something that feels, coming right back to the beginning, good enough, fair enough, and so on. That can be quite fluid and so on in the moment. So I think having you there would be. I was interested to hear what you say, because I'm pleased that we're aligned on that one. But I think it can be really useful within the process. Yeah. Okay. So got your report. We've talked about some context and some scenarios where your service can be really useful, and that was very helpful. We talked about what might go into your report. Can I drill down a little bit in terms of how that might fit into the mediation process? And so let me kind of get you to maybe run a process through to the point at which I might be, as a mediator, asking you, working with you, and you might say, no, actually be quite useful before or after. You can come back to me. So I might be. I've now seen the couple individually for their pre-mediation meetings. They've decided and are committed to try to come into mediation, try to reach their own financial solutions with me. They then go into a preparation period before the first joint session. I call it preparation period. I send them financial statements, income and expenditure schedules, pension forms, and so on. And I give them a various series of videos referring to divorce manual, etc. And they then go off and do their best to collect the information and funnel it back to me. And I put it onto a spreadsheet, and it's just a first draft. It's their first attempt together to grab that. Boom, we're in the first session. We then run through those figures. We haven't got yet. I'm not getting outgoing details yet. I haven't got to earning capacity yet. But we run through the details, assets, liability, and so on, and we identify any main gaps. That's maybe one part of that very first joint session. The next part of the joint session is, okay, let's talk about. Let me hear from you, each of you, or let you hear from each other, your kind of approach you're taking. Let's identify where the points of resistance or discomfort or challenging areas might be, and then up it pops. One thinks, well, there's enough for a clean break. The other person's saying, well, I'm not sure there is. I might need some financial support. There's a big disparity in incomes, and we suddenly see this area emerge. And at that point, in that first session, I would be saying to the couple, maybe we ought to think about, three of us, the problem-solving team, in bringing someone else, another expert, into the problem-solving team with a particular expertise to help one of you and both of you, the payer and the payee, to look at the area of earning capacity. Because I anticipate, from my experience as a lawyer and mediator, that could be an area. Is that okay with you? And they go, yes, that seems sensible. We don't want to go to court. We want to try and contain this. And at that point, I might say, okay, what do you think we need to be asking that expert? So I'll pause there. So I've got this couple. I would be thinking about, as a lawyer mediator, what questions, instructions do we want? Who do we want to select? Andrew, we've got the guy on our website. We know they've watched the video, they like it. We've got the guy. We selected the person. We now have to kind of construct the instructions. Think about the questions we're going to ask you. would it be useful at that stage to consult with you about how to instruct you, what to be asking, or is that a bit of overkill or at this stage?
I would say 98%, literally, I would say 98% of cases, as long as the parties and you as the mediator identify what is in dispute between the parties, then there is no reason that you cannot then issue instructions to me in a straightforward way. The 2% is if I think the parties would be aware, and I think as a mediator you would be aware, is if you are asking me to adjudicate, to provide expert evidence on an employment activity that is so weird as to be among those that no amount of expertise is going to genuinely add or resolve issues or add to the process. There are margins of activity.
Like
I mean, as an example,
like a composer, an orchestra, or
indeed, I was going to use a case that, fortunately, not a family case, but a case that I've been working on in the past couple of weeks.
yeah.
A person who, for various reasons, has decided to take themselves off and to become a prosthetic sculptor. What you say is a prosthetic sculptor, which of course was me. I'm an expert.
Yeah.
I've never heard of a prosthetic sculptor.
Yeah.
And a prosthetic sculptor is a branch of special effects cosmetics, which is used in Star Wars or in police dramas if they want a particularly grotesque wound.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And the person has dedicated 3 years of their life to studying this at a lesser known university and has their degree in this and hasn't earned anything in a year. And in my view, probably won't ever earn anything in the next 5 years. But that, in a sense, why it's come to me in this case is, in fact, to say, look, this is ridiculous. There are no earnings figures. You're saying what we're doing this job. And if you were coming to me in the case of mediation, and one party was saying, I'm a trained prosthetic sculptor. Oh, you should be able to earn such a. I just couldn't. That would be a composer or something that is so odd.
Yes. So you're I think you're saying, look, if it's so odd that I couldn't be of much help, there wouldn't. Yeah, no. So it might be if I'm talking to mediators out there now, if it's so off the wall, it might be worth a conversation with you first, saying
absolutely before you.
Yeah,
and if I say, look, I just don't.
Not sure I can help. Yeah,
you're just going to have to toss a coin.
Yeah.
Because it will be as useful as asking me.
Yeah, do your best effort, make your best efforts, go for it, see how you get on, kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, no, I've got that. I'm conscious of time a little bit, Andrew, because obviously we've told our viewers it's 30 minutes, so we ought to try to keep to that, because we don't want them switching off at 30 minutes and 1 second. They won't, of course, because it's a fascinating conversation, by the way. So I've got that. One question I did have actually is I'm, of course, with my clients, I'm a neutral. I know you've got and I'll come to this in a minute, your website, which is focusing the viewer, the user, the provide on what you do in mediation as an expert, which is really good. And I'll refer people to that in a minute. Do you take, as a mediator, could I facilitate the instructions for the clients to you directly? In other words, do they contract with you directly? Because I'm not acting for them. I'm a neutral. I'm not acting for either of them. And so when I'm instructing pension experts, they instruct the pension experts. I facilitate that instruction. I can help them instruct. I can be a conduit. I can be a facilitator, a broker. But the contract, I'm not going to be responsible for them paying their fees.
Yeah, no. I mean, they would contract directly with me.
Thank you.
What you would emphasise with them is this bloke wants paying, and if he doesn't pay you, he'll pursue you over hill and dale.
No, well, no, of course, and that comes to kind of obviously the commercials, which we will do very, very quickly. I mean, I know a lot of experts say, look, I need a payment on account just to ensure that you have enough skin in the game, invested, interest, commitment, and so on. Some do, some don't. I mean, that's up to, that will be up to you, of course. But our media, it's ways of working. People have different ways of working. I'm sure most people will are of good intent and good faith and have. Yeah.
Occasionally, I mean, we've all been stiffed.
Oh yeah, sadly, yeah, we have. Okay, that's clear. No, that's clear. Okay, as we kind of bring this to an end, do you think there's anything you would like the viewers to hear that you perhaps haven't had an opportunity to say in this meeting that you think would be useful for them? Or yeah, that's my final question really before I can bring it to an end. Anything you think would be useful for?
No, I think I would hope that engagement with me, engagement with an employment consultant, and trying to resolve a financial dispute could offer both parties an opportunity to move on, and particularly somebody who requires a change of direction in their life, who wants some pointers about how they're going to spend the next 30 years of their life and what they're going to get out of it. I know lots about it. I don't know everything, and every person is going to be different. But I don't think you're going to be any worse off hearing what I've got to say than you would be if you never came anywhere near me.
And I think that's a really nice way to round this off, actually, because I think the support that you can offer to the many clients I've had over the last, I don't know, 26 years of helping couples reach their financial solutions. I think the support you can offer, the more I listen to you, talk to you, which is a real pleasure, by the way, I think the great support you can be, and assist them, support them to restructure, recreate, transform, transition into the future, because we're all a work in progress in helping this couple, yes, work together, but each individually moving into and making decisions for themselves, reaching agreements for themselves. And if they can do that, by the way, I'll tell every couple, and you will tell them, and I know we're exactly the same page. We will say to them, if you can do that, if we can help you collaborate, communicate, decision make together, not only can you cut your costs, your professional costs, to a minuscule amount of how much you would be paying if you were going through the court system using solicitors and experts through that process. I often say it's at least the 10th, but in many cases, having practiced in London, around London, it's a much more than that. Not only do you save costs, the stress of that kind of process, and the damage it can do to relationships, which are of course important as well, parenting relationships on. There are many, many, many advantages for using someone like you and the process we're talking about. So I see you nodding, which is good. It's good. Andrew, look, thank you. Look, so thank you so much for the time you put in, and I know your time's incredibly valuable. So thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing your ideas, thoughts, and how you work. I am convinced that the financial couples that we're working with in mediation will benefit hugely from your work. Oh, I did mention this website. Thank you. Can you just tell them, just if you can, let's rattle off, and I will be on my website, by the way, as well. But how can they get hold of you? Yes, through my website, but you directly. What's your?
It's all on my website. It's got my email address, got my telephone number.
And what is the website address?
Andrew Nicoll Mediation.
Fantastic. www.andrewnicoll, 2 L's, mediation. Is it .co.uk.com?
Andrew Nicoll, all one word.
Yeah.
Then -mediation.com.
Fantastic. As I say, guys, thank you. Look, viewers out there, you've just heard the website. It'll be on the Compass Resolution website, as well as Andrew directly. So again, thank you very much, Andrew. I'm going to say goodbye to you now. So thanks very much indeed, and I look forward to catching up with you very soon. Cheers. Thanks very much. Bye. Bye.